Hey guys, welcome to part 7 of my discord.py making a Discord bot in Python tutorial. In this video we're going to be going over how to create a background task, and the background task that we're going to be creating for this video is essentially, if you remember from the last video where we changed the bot status, this is essentially going to be a function that changes the bot status just every certain interval of time. So every 30 seconds, let's say, the status will change to something else, and you'll just have a list of preset messages that you can change them in between. And this video is actually partially a request, not the background task, but the changing status. So shout out to you. You know who you are. So there's that. Anyways, so let's get right into that. So you're going to need to import a couple more things. First of all, we're going to import async IO. And essentially the async IO module just allows us to create asynchronous functions and stuff like that. And you may be thinking, wait, haven't we already done that when we put async in front of these function headers and stuff like that? I mean, yes, technically, but importing the full module just gives us a bit more tool, or a couple more tools to work with. So there's that. And then next we want to say from iter tools import cycle. And so what this module allows us to do is it allows us to iterate through lists a bit differently, and the cycle part of the module that we are importing specifically allows us to loop through a list over and over. So we'd go first element, second element, third element, first element, second element, third element, over and over and over, however many times we need. And so yeah, that'll come in handy because we're going to need to loop through our messages. Alright, so we have those imported. Now what we're going to want to do is create a list of messages that we want to cycle through. So I'm just going to say status, and this will be my list of statuses. And I can just say, I don't know, message 1, I don't know, I can just say message 2, and just message 3, something like that. Here, let's make it consistent. MSG. God, I can't type today. So we have our 3 messages there. So those are that list will contain all the messages you want to iterate through. You can add more, you can add less. Just keep in mind that the more you have, obviously, it'll take longer for the loop to cycle over. So if you want one message to show up more prominently than another one, you're going to have to fiddle around with this a bit more. But yeah, for the most part, that's just what you're going to want to do. Now we're going to get into our function. So we're going to say async def, and I'm going to call this function change status. Alright, so it's an asynchronous function, naturally. And then we want to type await client wait until ready. And essentially what this does is it means none of the other code is going to run until this onReady function has been called. And actually, it doesn't necessarily mean the onReady function has been called, because you might not necessarily have an onReady function, but it just means when the onReady status is sort of, when that Boolean variable has turned to true, just when the bot is ready. Wait until ready. It's in the name. And we're going to say messages, or not messages, but the statuses, whatever, message, it doesn't make a difference, is going to be a cycle of our status. So that's where this comes in. So messages is equal to cycle, and in the brackets you're just going to put status, or whatever you've named your list. And now we're going to create our loop. So while not client is closed. So is closed just determines if the client is no longer connected, and we're saying not because we want to find out if the client is connected. So that's pretty straightforward. So while it's connected, the current status, and this is just me sort of isolating it. I could just dump the code here into the change presence line, but I mean, it looks a bit cleaner if I separate it. But current status is next messages, or whatever you've named your variable up here. Pretty straightforward so far. Now we're going to set the current status to our, we're going to set our bot status as the current status here. So that's simply await client change presence. This is all from the last video. Game discord.game. Make sure that's capital. And name is current status. So we've gotten our status, we've set it here, and now we want to put our delay in between status updates. So here we're going to say await async IO sleep, and then here you're going to put the amount of seconds you want in between your delay. So we could say something like, I don't know, I'll say 5 just for the sake of this video so the delays aren't huge. But if you wanted to change every minute, you'd put 60. If you wanted to change every hour, you'd put 60 times 60, which is whatever. But yeah, just put your integer in there, and that's essentially it. So that function is created. Now we need to sort of fire up the loop, and essentially to do that, we just go right here, down after everything's created, right before the run function, and we're just going to say client.loop create task and just your function name. So mine is change status. If yours is whatever else, whatever other function you created for your background task, just put the name in there and that'll start the loop, or it'll at least create that task, hence creating the function. You can look into the async IO module a bit more, because these functions here, this create task here, and this async IO.sleep, these are all part of this module here. And actually, I might explain this now. The async IO.sleep, we're using this instead of something like time.sleep, for example. And the reason we use this is because async IO, essentially the way it uses sleep is it just pauses that function while allowing the rest of the code to run in the background, whereas time.sleep literally pauses the entire file from running. So if you had a for loop, for example, in one function, and you had your async IO.sleep, assuming everything was asynchronous and all of that, if you had your async IO.sleep, geez, I'm tripping up, it would pause that for loop while letting everything else run. Whereas if you had your time.sleep, it would pause everything. That whole program would be paused for whatever that delay you set was. So not too important, but just why we're using that. But yeah, that's basically the code. It's not too crazy. Most of this code is actually taken straight from the discord.py GitHub. You can look at, in the examples, there's a background task. There's a background task example. And this code actually looks pretty similar, but for the most part, it's pretty similar. I'm just sort of repeating myself at this point. But yeah, that's essentially it. And let's test it out now. Open in browser, wait for the onReady just to make me happy. Alright, so we have message 1 here. Let's see. Message 2, perfect. And message 3. Okay, I'm going to say that was about 5 seconds simply because it's going quickly. But yeah, that's essentially it. And back to message 1, as you can see. So the cycle is working fine, the delay is working fine, and that'll run in the background. So in theory, I don't know, do I have any commands set up here? I'm going to have log out, but that'll just turn on the bot. But in theory, everything should be working fine. If you have any problems, again, just leave it in the comments below. Someone else or me will help you. But that's it for this video, more or less. So what did we do? We learned how to create a background sort of function. It's not an event, it's not a command, and we learned how to use this client wait until ready. It essentially just sort of halts halts the function from running until the onReady function has been called, or the onReady status has been sort of fulfilled or obtained. We learned about the client is closed. It's just detecting if the client's connected currently or not. We learned how to create a cycle, and we've learned a bit about the async IO sleep function. So that's really it for this video. It's a pretty quick one. But yeah, just a quick update for the rest of the videos. I'm thinking of going into music bots pretty soon, probably in the next 2 or 3 videos. I just want to go over things like embeds. That'll make your sort of bot messages look a bit prettier. And then, is there anything else? No, not really. So I guess it'll be embeds, and then whatever other quick suggested videos there are. I did see a request for something along the lines of an economy or a leveling system. I haven't personally made those on my own before. I'm looking into how to make them, but as of right now, There's no video planned because I'm still not quite sure on how to make it, but I'm working on it. It's coming. But for now, you can expect a video on embeds and a video, or a couple videos actually, because that'll have to be its own mini-series on creating a music bot. You know, if you want to play music into your Discord, joining voice channels, whatever. But yeah, that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments in the comments. Like if you enjoyed it, and that's it. See you later. Bye.